This is BBC Two.
This is the Open University.
Welcome to Kyoto and welcome back to the Open University, where we're on a special mission today. We're in the footsteps of rock star David Bowie. This is a weird echo chamber kind of situation, because whenever I research Bowie's life in Kyoto, as I was asked to do for the Japan Times, for instance, in 2016 when Bowie died, I find that the main source of this information is me talking about Togendo, which was the house that Bowie lived in, owned by David Kidd. It was actually a kind of college for traditional Japanese arts like flower arrangement and calligraphy. Too much traffic. So in 2016, when David Bowie died, I was asked by the Japan Times to talk about his life in Japan, his connections with the ryokan here, where he stayed on his honeymoon with the imam. So this is another famous Bowie location, the Tawaraya ryokan, which is a traditional inn. It's only rated 2-star, I don't know why, but it costs you 1,000 euros per night. And about Togendo, which was a house he lived in and was going to move to, I think, in 1979. Togendo was an academy at that point of traditional calligraphy and Japanese arts. And Bowie was so entranced by it that he was being stalked by a taxi. He did tell television interviewers that he had bought or was about to buy a kit house, a wooden house, which had beams that just interconnected without the need for any nails, which had been an old tie-dye house. He wanted to reconstruct his tie-dye house on a piece of land in Japan and live in it, and move to Japan after Berlin. This was going to be his next big destination, but that he found the price of land too expensive. At that point he was broke, I guess, and therefore he renounced this project. So we came up to Blue Bottle, which is a beautifully sited cafe on the Keage Rise, it's called. It's a part of Higashiyama, the eastern mountain part of Kyoto. And this is a cafe we'd come to before and liked. The coffee is not the best, but the sighting is fantastic. And this turns out to be exactly where Togendo was. And Togendo was the home owned by David Kidd. When I first started coming to Kyoto in the early 90s, I went to this Cafe David, which I knew had Bowie connections, but the David in question was David Kidd, who was born in, I think, 1929 in the US. He was the son of a coal miner, and his dad ended up working in Detroit in the car industry. When David Kidd was 19, he left America and went to China, to Beijing, where he was teaching English. Then he married the daughter of a high-ranking judge. This was the very tail end of the imperial era in China. And they moved together, the daughter of this judge and David Kidd moved into a 101-bedroom mansion in Beijing, but were then chased out by the communists in the early 50s. And David went back to the US for a while, but then moved to Japan in 1956. And he soon started his own college. He started a kind of college called Togendo, College of Traditional Arts. So it was calligraphy and flower arrangement and this kind of thing. And it was from 1976, it was in this house Togendo. One of his students at this school was Alex Kerr, who I'm not a great fan of, a sort of traditionalist American critic of modernist Japan, who has built his own house. And now the mission for us in this video is to try and find Togendo, and I'm doing this based mostly on a visit made by Eri Wilde, who came in 2001 to Kyoto and asked in Cafe David, which was still around then, it's closed since, where was Togendo? And they told her the rough area, which is it's near the Westin Hotel here up in Higashiyama. And she came and she asked a postman, and the postman told her exactly where it was. He knew that David Kidd had lived there and that there were associations with David Bowie. It's also right next to the Ginkakujin, which is the silver pavilion temple, which incidentally was used for the filming of Crystal Junrock Japan, the only TV commercial David Bowie did here in Japan, and which in fact was the basis for his Crystal Japan single. We have a hunch it might be canal cruise boarding area. We have a hunch it might be up here. Because on the other, where I thought it was, on the other side, it's like a water processing plant. So this is an old canal or something here. I don't think it was as big as this villa. Pretty sure it wasn't. And also the entrance doesn't seem to be. This is like a weird canal with railway lines going into it. So things were brought down the canal from a railway line. You are here. Statue, water pipes. And then to the Nanzenji. Western Power Station. That's the... Let's see. Here's the canal that actually leads to Lake Biwa. Ah, there's a shrine there. Here's some steps up to the villa. You know, this looks like the picture of the steps that was in the Japonaiserie magazine. It's certainly very peaceful. So now it's raining slightly, but it's worth it for the cause. And we're in this beautiful ascending path. So Bowie told a TV crew from NHK in an interview in I think 1980 that he was contemplating buying a tie-dye house, a kit house, that he was going to rebuild on a piece of land somewhere else in Japan, but he couldn't find the right piece of land.
I've heard that you have been looking for a Japanese house in Japan, Kyoto.
It was actually a house that was offered to me. It was a 400-year-old tie-dye house, but I wasn't able to take it at the time, but mainly because I couldn't find any land to build it on. It's very hard to find land in Japan. So, but I think I would love to do that, just to buy a very old, because of the Japanese carpentry, I think is quite superb, with only the use of wood, pegs, no metal. Yes. It would be nice to, before they're all destroyed, to try and get hold of one of those old houses and store it until I find somewhere to rebuild it.
Yes.
So he never bought the kit house. He actually moved to Australia. He got a place in Sydney and then made Let's Dance and all the rest of it. And the rest is history, as they say. But I like to see the shed skins of the Bowie personae and sort of follow where they might have led. In this case, it's a very winding path. And Bowie said he was contemplating living in Japan, but would get too zen if he lived here, and his writing would dry up. So the Buddhist side in him would take over, and it would just be keeping everything at arm's length. Fame, money, Don't think he had much money when he was going to live in Japan, though. That's why he couldn't afford the land to build his tie-dye house on. May peace prevail on earth. This is a cemetery up here, but it'll give us a little more orientation. This is somewhere you might have views out over Kyoto. Beautiful old house here. These are all children who've died prematurely. And a forest behind. See, this could not be Togendo because there's no views over the city or over the Miyako Hotel. Here's equipment for taking care of your ancestors' graves, including scrubbing brushes to keep them scrubbed up. Life keeps reaffirming itself here as a plant near the cemetery, growing through a tiny hole, which ants are also using as a subway entrance, and tiny red spiders too. So around here, this is the Kyoto incline, which goes down to the Kyoto station. Little chink of a view of Kyoto there. So from here you can take the Lake Biwa Canal cruise, a boarding area, and this is the view that Eri Wilde took when she looked back over her shoulder and had a strong sense of deja vu, and of David using this station, Kyoto Station. So it's worth saying that Kyoto, it's not a city I know very well, although I lived in Keihanshin, which is the name for the whole region, the Kansai cities of Kobe, Osaka and Kyoto. I only came up here really to do shopping occasionally at Soso, which is the sort of Japanese derivative of Marimekko, and to play at places like the Café Independent or the Kyoto Metro Club, or to see shows there. And meet friends occasionally, but I didn't really come very often, so I can't really be one of these pioneer snobs who says, oh, it used to be better back in the old days when Kyoto was just for the connoisseurs, or even the COVID days, you know. It's actually, it's always been a touristic center for me, so I prefer the rundown arcades of Osaka, on a rainy day like this especially. But I do think there has been a Magalufization of Kyoto. So Magaluf, of course, is the touristic town in Mallorca, and Kyoto has a certain kind of mainstream tourism now, which it didn't have. I think it was a little bit more sophisticated tourism before, and now it's really people who just fly in like they would fly into Magaluf. So it turned out we were barking up the wrong tree, or we were walking up the wrong hill. Actually, we should have been on the other side of the street, looking around the hike trails behind the water purification plant. But that would have been also a bit of a dead end, because the mansion on Kujayama, called Togendo, which David Kidd lived in and Bowie visited, has been demolished. According to Japanese sources, all that remains today is the black wall surrounding the property. It's right next to the Villa Kujayama, which is actually a French institute property where they have artists in residence. And apparently Ryuichi Sakamoto bought it after David Kidd died in the late 90s and may have lived there for a while. So we could find one picture from the early 90s of the famous Togendo with blossom around it.
Open University,